Hello, my beautiful Chads and Chadettes, and welcome to this absolutely draining, ball-splurging theory that might just change your perspective on Azumanga Daioh's most iconic character. I am of course talking about Osaka. But before we actually get into explaining it, look, just like, subscribe, and strap in with a radioactive shit brewing in those guts, and enjoy. So, before you guys get the full picture, I need to break this down one by one so you guys can explain how this theory works. So, I'll just say that Osaka from Azumanga Dildo, at first she's shown as shy, and then she's a fucking dumbass. Anyways, she's a serial killer that's having a dream, and I know it sounds crazy, but I can prove it. And unfortunately, no, I can't go off of my personal experience dreaming, because I either dream the color black or cocks. Maybe both, but that's besides the point. We need to examine the people in Osaka's life in Azumanga Dildo and see how they fit into her cracked psyche. So I'll list whatever they represent and explain later on. And don't worry, it's all pretty simple. Chiyo represents Osaka's lost innocence. Sakaki represents how she was seen in school, Kagura represents her athleticism, Tomo represents her as a psychopath, and finally, Miss Tanizaki represents her in the present. Now, let's finally get to the analysis. Chiyo is quite self-explanatory. She's literally 10 in the 10th grade. Her outlook on life also reflects the innocence that would come out of a child that small being in high school so early. And when applied to Osaka's very cracked life, it's obvious that she mentally took her being the youngest classmate in her class to the extreme. In reality, Osaka was probably around 13 to 14 in the 10th grade. But in this dream that's blended all of her emotions together in her experiences, that it's heavily exaggerated to reflect her alienation from being younger than her classmates. And the next person after that would be the next step in who she became after this, and that would be Sakaki. And you see, Sakaki is shown to be silent, reserved, and you guys are probably like, but she's got fucking aura. And I would say, shut the fuck up, you worthless diarrhea chugger. Look, the other characters giving Sakaki aura was just how she wanted to be perceived in the moment. She was quiet, but she was also alienated from everyone else, and she wasn't really that cool. That's just how she perceived herself as. But Sakaki being athletic is something that would be built upon as the next step in Osaka's journey into becoming a serial killer. And in addition to her being silent, Sakaki also likes animals, which is a common trait with serial killers. So it's obvious that Osaka had an interest in animals, but it also bled even deeper and more sinister. But at the same time, Sakaki was mildly athletic, but our next character is more athletic. And of course, I'm talking about Kagura. Yeah, that's it. I got nothing. No need to explain. She's just like injecting steroids and shitting on the backs of like dogs, just creating like fucking mudslides, slip-in slides with her own shit for animals. And I get how unconvincing that was, but this next part is where the theory goes back to being more convincing. There's always going to be a weak spot in a theory, but this next part is a more powerful link. Let's go to Tomo. Tomo as a character is loud. If she were to be alive today in the form that she was when Azumanga Daioh takes place in like 1960 or fucking 1800 or whatever, she'd be one of those bitches at your school spamming 6-7 at 1 in the morning. But no. Inside of Osaka's psyche, this represents her coming full mask off and starting to kill people. Now, Tomo's explosive personality is something. I mean, she doesn't really care about her actions unless it's fun and benefits her. So obviously this ties back to her committing her first crime and chopping the pieces up of her first dead body and disposing it. Anyways, on to the last person who represents the 7 deadly sins of Osaka. Miss Tanozaki. Miss Tanozaki represents who Osaka is in the present. After graduating as the youngest student of her school and being ignored, rejected, she became a BP aura god that killed people like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. After that, she studied to become a teacher so she could pick off her next targets at that very school from which she graduated from. This is shown from Miss Tanozaki being a massive throbbing dick that robs her students in the very first episode. But in reality, she killed him. That's why he's such a nothing burger of a character throughout the show's runtime. Now, some of you may be skeptical. And look, usually I tell you to suck a bag of throbbing dicks that are flying at you, right? But instead, to really sell you on this theory, I'd like to show you this. A panel of Osaka as a teacher in the other manga that the creator of Azumanga made. And now it seems more full circle, doesn't it, right? Okay, I know that might not be enough proof, so let me go through some events throughout the series or just clear things up about why Osaka is who she is inside of my theory, and really explain why she is this awful killer. For Chio, it's pretty self-explanatory again. She's played as innocent up until graduation, but throughout she did grow more mature. But when she's evolved to halfway through her 10th grade year, she became more reserved, like Sakaki. However, a common trait with serial killers is that they kill animals, and Sakaki is shown to like animals. So, in Osaka's dream, every time Sakaki interacts with animals, she consumes it. Why consuming it? Simple. Every character in the show is shown to like eating, so this must be a part of Osaka's later MO. But since she needed to develop her MO and make sure that no one noticed the weight that she was gaining, and so she could better catch her victims, she became more athletic, like Kagura. Until she finally absorbed the Sigma grind set and became Tomo. Which, made her into a psychopath. But Tomo specifically represents how she shows to her victims how crazy she is before killing them. She has a mask-off moment, like Dexter. Is it on a table? Probably not. Now, as much as I'm talking about Osaka as a person, I'm not speaking on her as a character inside of the show. So what do I have to bring to the table that confirms Osaka being this monster? Well, it's simple. The scene that made me think of this in the first place and start this theory is when Osaka is sharing scary stories with all of her friends at the table. And this is meant to be a haha funny moment, but this is actually her showcasing how her first set of kills were. And with this all set in stone, let me piece you through Osaka's story from child prodigy to the Azumanga School Ripper. When Osaka was a young girl, she showed exceptional intellect and was able to advance to the 10th grade at 13 years of age. However, she felt left out by her peers and was bullied for her country accent, which led to a disconnect later in the school year, which turned her into the very monster we're talking about today. She would always go to animals for comfort, and eventually, using the animals that she leaned on in comfort, turned into target practice with her BO2 bayonet knife. As her 10th grade year raged on, she grew physically. Osaka began to plan how to take out her teachers who did nothing to stop her from feeling more lonely. And so, she waited for opportunity. And so, on a pillowy, snowy night, on a school ski trip, she took out the teachers that she had the most trouble with and staged it like an accident before slowly marching into her cabin and acting like nothing happened. So after walking up the hill, she walked back into her cabin with her classmates with a smile on her face. They were shocked to see Osaka like this, but she brushed it off by telling everyone she was just thinking of a story. So she told a story about everyone in the cabin getting picked off, one by one, but of course she wasn't talking about everyone in the cabin, she was speaking about their teachers. And then the twist at the end was that she was the murderer. And of course, no one believed her. They thought the story was lame, they were bummed out. But the next day, when they got wind of the bodies that were found from an alleged skiing accident, she smiled. She knew she had gotten away with murder. Her forensics cover-up was perfect, and nobody thought she was serious about her story, when in actuality, she was. This absolute monster had gotten away with murder. And with that, her body count racked up month to month for the next 3 years. By the time she had graduated, her body count had been 100. 1/3 of the school's population was gone, and everyone else was none the wiser. They were looking at teachers like Mr. Kimura, and eventually he was arrested, framed for her murders. Because Kimura always had tendencies that people saw as odd, and respectfully, they were odd. But he was no murderer. When graduation did come, 148 students from the school had all disappeared, their deaths being framed as accidents, until, slowly, they found an MO. Knife slashes. But still, no one knew it was Osaka. So she went on to university where she became a teacher, specializing in not only English, but gym, so she could double up in 2 periods, as a gym teacher and as an English teacher. And from there, when she returned to the school, she used a similar MO to last time, but as a teacher, it was easier, especially as a gym teacher. And honestly, I made this video to show you how much of a gross, disgusting, despicable monster Ayumi Kasuga, aka Osaka, is. She was so proud of her actions that she visualized every step of her story as a TV show, as an innocent TV show, so she could tune into it as she slept. I fucking hate her character. She is the worst of the worst. A complete and utter monster. Anyways, tell me what you guys thought about this theory. Point out some holes or even add to it. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to me, and especially my voice acting company. If you don't subscribe to me, please subscribe to them, because soon we'll be releasing an Azumanga parody that I'm sure you guys will like. So, it's been your Hispanic Pappy Meric, and signing off. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Please subscribe to LBA. Bye-bye, please.
Girls, that's why!